Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast, ready for another week of NFL and a quick dive into a couple college football games. So, Jake, why don't we start with the college football? What games are we looking at?
Yeah, so obviously CFP is kind of where the majority of the games are going to talk about this week. All the bowl games are until late December, so we may figure out a time to get out some other bowl game picks, but there's not too many good ones, a few here and there, so we'll figure out kind of what we're thinking on that, and then we'll get back to you guys. But for the first 8 teams in CFP that don't have buys, we got a few picks for you guys. First off, we got Alabama and Oklahoma. That game is going to be in Oklahoma at OU. I heard class got canceled for that day, so it's going to be pretty lit out there in OU. Oklahoma did win the matchup the first time against Alabama on the road, so it's going to be a pretty interesting game. I'm curious to see whether Alabama is going to get Jam Miller back for this game. I don't know if he's out for the season or kind of what his status is, but I'm very curious as to kind of see how they're going to be able to incorporate the running backs into some sort of scheme in this game because they had -3 rushing yards against Georgia, and Georgia was bringing pressure like 60 to 70% of the plays that they were running, and it just completely threw Ty Simpson off. And obviously Georgia looked like the much better team, but I don't expect this quite the same thing from Oklahoma. I think that Alabama is going to be able to air the ball out a little bit here. I think Oklahoma is going to be more of the same. I think both rushing attacks are going to have a bit of a tough time with the front fours on either side. But I just think Alabama overall is going to be a little bit more talented in this game. They lost that first one. I think they're going to know how to right the ship, and hopefully DeBoer will be able to figure out kind of what's going on and how to right their wrongs and keep moving them forward in the playoff. But I don't think Alabama will make it much past this game. But I do like them in this game against Oklahoma. I think they're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Montier, and that'll kind of be able to keep them ahead in this game. I expect it to be a pretty close game, but so do the books. The line's at 1.5 right now, so it's pretty much a pick 'em. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with Bam on the money line.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Crimson Tide as well. I think Alabama's going to win in a rematch. It's always hard to beat the same team two times, which is hard to say considering I don't think Bama should have made the playoff. But Oklahoma hasn't been particularly impressive on the offensive side in about 6 weeks since Matir had his hand surgery. Even in the win against Alabama, they ended up pulling it off by 2 on the road, but I believe there was a pick six in that game. They ran it for under 2.5 a carry. They had under 250 total yards of offense. Meanwhile, Ty Simpson had 330 just through the air alone. And so if they're relying on an aerial attack again, if they can be clean with the ball, I think that they should come away with a win. So we'll see how it goes because on the road it's going to be tough, but I am taking Alabama.
Yeah, right on. Then we move on. We got Miami and Texas A&M. Pretty much the only game out of these four that I think an upset is going to look pretty likely. Texas A&M obviously just had a really tough loss to Texas on the road. They're back at home in this game, so it's going to make it a tough place to play for Miami. But I think Miami is going to be able to get it done. I'm going to take them at +3.5 in this game. I believe they're 2.5 3-point dogs, maybe right at 3.5. But I like Miami +3.5. I think Cristobal argued to get them into this game, so they got to show what they're about. And I think this team does have a lot of really good players that eventually can make it to the NFL. I just think they just kind of had a couple missteps against good teams along the way. But yeah, I like Miami. I like Texas A&M too. I think they're a good team. I just think that they're a little bit fraudulent against some of the better teams that they played. So I'm very curious to kind of see what happens in this game. But yeah, this would be my one underdog pick for the week for college football playoff probably. But yeah, I'll take Miami +3.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Miami +3.5 as well. I think this is going to be a really fascinating game because it's going to be one in the trenches. Texas A&M's had a really good offensive and defensive front, and Miami started the year really hot on the offensive front, and defense has been better than last year, but still not great. But I do feel like Carson Beck has the experience, but I think Marcel Reed's going to try and prove himself, so it's going to depend how much they can contain him using his legs. So it's going to be a real interesting game. I think that Miami's going to try and win it down in the trenches and pound the rock. Try and keep the game as low scoring as possible to give themselves a chance to win it. So I do like Miami at +4 as well.
Yep. Then we got Tulane and Ole Miss. Ole Miss no longer has Lane Kiffin, so everybody's been kind of writing them off, but here they go. They got Tulane, probably the best shoe-in other than Oregon against JMU that you can get. So 17.5 points, it's a lot. I'm kind of been going back and forth on this, but I think I'll probably just end up buying Ole Miss down a point to 16.5 and taking them. I think they're going to have a lot to prove without having their head coach. Obviously, they have a really talented roster, so as long as the majority of their guys are stepping up and ready to go, then I think they'll have no problem with Tulane. It's really going to come down to whether their defense can stop Tulane. I think that they're overall going to be the far superior team on paper, but it's just going to be a matter of how coaching plays effect into the game.
Yeah, the last time these two teams matched up, it was 45-10. Obviously, Ole Miss getting a big win at home under Kiffin. So it might be a little bit different, but Retzlaff struggled a lot against a good defense, which, in regards to that conference, not necessarily the best defense, but better than anyone Tulane played outside of that. Retzlaff was 5 of 17, and they ran it for under 2.5 a carry, even though I think they had 100 yards on the ground in that game. So I imagine Tulane is not going to cover 16, considering they lost by 35 last time. So I'm going to take Ole Miss at minus 16 as well. Will be interesting to see how Ole Miss starts the game because they might start a little slower under a different coach, but I think that good teams pull it together in the second half, and they should pull it away from there.
Yeah, and Ole Miss, I think, has one of the top 3 running backs in the nation this year in Lacey. Yep. So I think as long as they keep finding ways to get him the rock in open space, they'll find a way to cover that 16.5. Then last one, we got JMU and Oregon. Not too much to say about this one. I think the Tulane and JMU getting in was a little bit of a farce this year. So it's interesting to see kind of what they're going to do with it next year, especially if these are blowout games. But Oregon's 21.5 point favorites. I'm going to buy it down to 16.5 again. Just take the Ducks. I think at Autzen, we're going to be able to pretty handily win this game. And I think it's going to be a pretty good little tune-up game to see what comes next against Texas Tech, because it's going to be a 4 versus 5, I think. And I think Oregon's going to have a really good shot to win that game against Texas Tech. So very curious to see kind of how our guys play. I think we're going to come in ready to go, getting a couple guys back off injury, and I think our defense is going to be humming. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do think that this is going to be a pretty big win for the Ducks at home.
Yeah, 21 seems like a crazy line for a college football playoff. So it's hard to not like 21.5. But I'm also going to take Oregon. Being at home after laying an egg after the bye last year, I think that they're going to be ready to go. Like you said, Dan Lanning's going to have them playing. They're not going to come out starting slow. I think they're going to come out super hot. And so you might even be able to get JMU with more points after the first quarter, because Oregon's been one of the best teams in the first quarter all season long. So we'll see how it goes. If Oregon starts slow, I think they'll pull it together and still find a way to win. I think I'll probably end up taking it at minus 16 as well, maybe minus 17. But I think it is all going to depend on how they start the game in that first quarter, so I might live bet it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that'll wrap it up to the first round of college football playoff. We'll get back to you guys next time, maybe in a week or two, just to figure out kind of where our heads out on the bowl games and see if we can't get some picks out to you there. But moving on to the NFL, we got the first game on Thursday night is the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Got another divisional game that's going to mean a lot for that division. Buccaneers have obviously lost quite a few with the injuries they've had, and defense just hasn't been as consistent as they were to start the season off. So I think they're going to have to get back to those ways. They're getting Mike Evans and McMillan back off injury, so the wide receiving core is going to be back to full strength. They got Bucky back. So I think it's just kind of about getting back into the groove before the playoff time hits. I think they are the best shot to win that division still. So I do like the Bucs a lot. The Panthers are right on their heels, but I just don't see them being able to outplay the Bucs over these last 4 weeks. So I'm going to take the Bucs minus 2.5, just buy it down from 4.5 or 5.5. I think that's going to be a pretty solid play, and they're at home in this game. So I think they'll be able to kind of get it done and kind of figure out what they're doing as a team here going towards the playoffs.
Yeah, especially with the short week. Like you said, tied with the Panthers right now in the division. Panthers have the Saints this week, so they need to be able to take care of the Falcons at home. Again, no Drake London. I think this is his 6th missed game to injury this year, which is kind of weird, considering he keeps being listed as questionable and now out for the 3rd straight week. So I think that severely hurts the Falcons' chances of being able to move the ball at all. Outside of Bijan, if the Bucs can be able to shut that down, then there's not much for Kirk to throw to. So I do like the Bucs to cover 4 in this game.
Yep. Then we got the Browns and the Bears. I don't have too much to say. I thought the Browns were going to be able to get it done against the Titans, but that defense just had a rough time, I think, last week against Cam Ward. Also, just gave the Titans too many chances in good field position on special teams. So I think the Browns need to turn it around, but this Bears team is a little bit different this year. Obviously, just lost a close one to the Packers. Um, Packers are looking great, so not too much else to say there. Kind of sucks seeing the Bears go from the 1 seed in the NFC all the way down to the 7 seed just in one game. But hey, that's the way it's going this season. Everything's super close and competitive. But yeah, Bears need to keep in it in the NFC playoff race. So I think they'll win this game. And what better way to do it than against a Browns team that's pretty depleted and on a third string quarterback that's looked surprisingly good. So yeah, I'll take the Bears minus 2.5 in this game. I think they're going to be able to find ways to get to Shador and cause a few turnovers here and there. And with the way Caleb's played this year, I think Ben Johnson will have him ready to go.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Browns up to plus 10 from the 7.5, 8 range. I do think that their defense is going to be able to keep them in it. They had some weird ones. Again, I think it was more field position related in the last week against the Titans. I believe there's also a punt return touchdown, a kick return touchdown that helped the Titans kind of stay in that game and then take the lead at the end. I think Caleb also still holds on to the ball too long. He doesn't do it all the time, but he does it sometimes, and you're not going to want to do that when you have Myles Garrett chasing you. So I think that could be a cause for a sack fumble. Or even just a bunch of hits that he's going to be taking from that front line of the Browns. So I'm gonna like that Browns at plus 10. I think Shador has been playing pretty solid since given a chance. Obviously, I think he had 350 yards last week. I don't expect him to do that again. But if he can at least have a clean game, I think that they're going to have a chance to keep it within 10.
Yeah, right on. I like that as well. Then we got Ravens Bengals, another pretty big divisional game. Ravens are trying to keep themselves in this race. I know you had them out before the playoffs started, and it's looking more and more likely with kind of the way everything's shaping up. But yeah, they got the Bengals again. The Bengals just beat them a couple weeks ago. We were all over that. And I'm going to take the Bengals again. Right now, it's 1.5. I think it started at 2.5 or 3.5. But it's down to 1.5. It's a bit of a trap. Bengals are at home in this game. So I think Joe Burrow is going to come out ready to play. Defense has been so much improved against with Burrow back. I think they just have a little bit different mojo as a team now, knowing that their quarterback can will them to wins no matter what. I think Burrow is one of those difference makers, and Lamar and the Ravens lost a tough one to the Steelers last week. And as long as the Bengals can kind of keep him in check, I think this is going to be a pretty close game. So I'll stick with the Bengals plus 3.5 here at home.
I was originally on the Bengals plus 3 at home as well. Part of me wants to take the Ravens just because I have that pending future of the Ravens to miss the playoffs at like plus 440. So I might take the Ravens money line in this game. I also did see a video of Joe Burrow being asked about how long he plans to play. And he said it just depends on if he can get the fun back in the game because he's not having any fun right now. And I think even having a chance against the Bills last week, they put up a whole lot of points just for a couple late picks to end the game. And the Bills were able to put him away. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he does. He made a comment that their eyes are not set on the playoffs. I think he kind of knows the season's done at 4-9. So I hope that they're at least set on knocking the Ravens out of the playoffs and getting to 5-9. But I didn't like his attitude, so I'll probably stick with the Ravens money line today.
Yeah, right on. Then we got the Chargers and the Chiefs. This will be a super fun one. Chargers were able to take down the Eagles with a completely depleted offensive line.
Love that.
Herbert coming off a broken hand is pretty impressive. It's been pretty funny. Quite a few teams this season have managed to beat both the Chiefs and the Eagles, and the Chargers are one of them so far. So I'm very curious to see how this game goes. The Chiefs need this win to kind of get back to 500 and give themselves any sort of a shot of making the playoffs. I think it's looking pretty grim right now with the way the AFC is shaking up, especially with the schedules that some of these teams they have to leapfrog over is looking. But I'm going to stick with the Chiefs minus 2.5 in this game. I think that defensive front is going to be able to get to Herbert with that broken offensive line. And Herbie wasn't quite the same with that broken hand against the Eagles. There were still a lot of turnovers on their side of the ball as well. And if the Chiefs are able to get those turnovers, they're definitely going to be able to capitalize a lot better than the Eagles were. I think Jalen Hurts had like 4 interceptions and a fumble in that game, which is pretty incredible. So the Chargers defense is definitely for real. But I just think the Chiefs are going to be a little bit of a different beast, and the Chargers will be on the road here. So I think Kansas City at home minus 2.5 is definitely going to be my play.
I am going to take the Chargers plus 7. I think that they keep this game close. They're also trying to keep themselves in that playoff picture because they're only one game away from being tied for the 8th seed. So if they lose, that's not good for them either. And so they need a big win. They usually play the Chiefs pretty tight, and I keep taking the Chiefs to win, and they keep letting me down, so I'm not doing it
Yeah.
again. So I'll just take the Chargers at +7.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take the Chiefs, hoping that they lose, because I'd love to see the Broncos get a nice win in that division. But they definitely also need some help from the Chargers, so we'll see. Then we got the Bills and the Patriots. Pretty interesting game, this one. I think the Patriots won the first one pretty handily, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of which Bills team shows up over the last couple weeks. Josh Allen's been pretty incredible. That snow game last week was super fun to watch. Definitely, hopefully, Bills will be able to kind of replicate that again here. We need them to beat the Patriots. Obviously, the Broncos need them to beat the Patriots, because if they can get a nice win this week and the Patriots manage to go down, they own the tiebreaker against the Patriots for number 1 in the AFC. So I think that's going to be a super interesting thing that's going to start to develop over the next couple weeks, is who's going to end up being that 1 seed. But yeah, I like the Bills +3.5. I think they're 2.5 or 1.5 point dogs on this one right now. And they've been playing really well the last couple weeks. They've started to get some things together on at least the offensive side of the ball has looked a lot better. Defense is still super wishy-washy. One game they'll give up 7 or 10 points, and the next they're giving up 30 plus. So I still think there's a bit of question mark on the defensive side of the ball, but I expect that they'll be able to make the playoffs and figure it out then, and start to come alive there. I mean, there's no better time for the Bills to try and make a big run than this year, especially with the Chiefs potentially being out of the picture. So I think it's going to start with a big win here against the Patriots on the road. So I'll stick with the Bills +3.5.
Yeah, I like this game, which is kind of weird considering we talked about the Patriots as one of our favorite picks earlier in the year in the same matchup. I believe the Patriots have won 8 of the last 11 in this series, 5 of the last 6. Josh Allen doesn't really beat the Patriots. That's one of his few teams that he can't find a way to get over the hump. And now going on the road, I believe, is going to be difficult to get another one. So we'll see how it goes. Patriots, I believe, are coming off of rest. But I don't love it.
Yep.
I mean, Stephon Diggs cooked him last time in a rematch. I think he had 120 yards, 10 catches. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he probably gets in the end zone this time, but maybe a little bit less yards. Bills defense is starting to come together a little bit. I know they just gave up 34 to Burrow, but they at least look like they're more cohesive as a unit. So I do think the Bills are going to end up finding a way to get this win. Because again, if they lose 9-5, they're going to be sitting right there between a 4 seed and an 8 seed, maybe even a 9 seed, depending on how some of these other games go. So they need to get a win. Pats just need it for securing the division. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Then pretty much a stinker of the week for me: Commanders and the Giants. 2.5 point line right now. The Giants are favored against the Commanders. Commanders obviously just lost Jaden again. Imagine that'll probably shut them down for the rest of the year with their current record. They have actually looked a little bit better with Mariota in at quarterback, so I'm kind of curious to see what happens, but I was on them all of last week, and then they lost 31-0 to the Vikings, so definitely not going to touch the Commanders again, and I do not have any faith in this Giants team without Scadaboo. So I'm just going to end up no playing this one this week. I just couldn't pick a winner. Honestly, both these teams are just complete ass, so hopefully Mariota will be able to get this team together and get the Commanders a win, but I couldn't drag myself to take a pick here.
Yeah, another a 39.5 point line for this game. So it's actually not the lowest of the week. We had the Browns, I think, was 38, but there's a lot right around 40, which is a low scoring week. But yeah, without Jaden, it's hard to tell. If he was playing, I'd probably be on them to get a win, get to 4-11. But with what we've seen, the Commanders look horrible. They just laid an egg against the Vikings in a game I thought they'd go out and win. And so the Giants are 2-11, but they honestly look like a 500 team at times. So I'm hoping that at home that they can find a way to pull off a win. Jackson Dart's probably going to be able to use his legs. Tyron Tracy can be able to pound the rock. So hopefully they find a way to get the win. I am going to take the Giants on the money line.
Yeah, right on. Then we got the Raiders and the Eagles. I think the Eagles are 12.5 or 13.5 point favorites in this one. I'm going to buy the Eagles down to 9.5 and just stick with them there. They need this win to kind of secure the division and keep the Cowboys out of the playoff picture. I think the Cowboys will be one of the scariest teams if they manage to find a way into the playoffs. I think there's like a 4% chance right now after that loss against the Lions. So it's pretty slim. But if the Eagles win this game, it'll kind of cement that, I think, for that division. The Raiders just having a really tough time so far. Looked a little bit better when they put in their backup quarterback last week, but I still don't think it's going to be good enough to beat this Eagles team. I don't expect the Eagles are going to make nearly as many mistakes as against this Raiders defense, just because the Chargers defense is so stacked, especially in the secondary. So I expect Hurts. They're going to find a way to get Hurts, be able to get him the ball down the field. A little bit better than the Chargers game, but I hope they just rely on Saquon more, because every time he touched the ball, and it looked pretty good last week. So as long as they just actually stick and implement a plan that works for them, I think that the Eagles have no problem covering 9.5.
Do you know if Geno's playing or if it's Kenny Pickett?
I couldn't tell you. I know Geno got hurt last week. I think in the early third quarter or so, maybe late third quarter. And then
All
Pickett
right.
came in and kind of closed the game out. They actually looked all right with Pickett, but I just think the Broncos were kind of keeping everything in front of them with a 17-point lead, and it ended up working out. So
Yeah. I'm thinking it might be a Kenny Pickett revenge game against the Eagles. I mean, he was there. Granted, nobody's going to know him better than the defensive coordinator. So we'll see how it goes. The Eagles have lost 3 straight. They look like they have zero direction. You have a quarterback who had 1 interception called back to penalty, and then he still ended up with 4 more picks and a fumble, 2 on the same play. So that's kind of tough. Doesn't really hurt you as bad. But I think he'll answer the call and come back. So I do like the Eagles -10 this week as well. I hope that Kenny Pickett can find a way to get revenge and keep that loss streak going for the Eagles and bump it to 4. But the Raiders just have been buns all year. I think they're 2-11.
yeah.
Pete Carroll should have stayed retired. So we'll see how it goes. I don't really expect too much coming from JT nor anyone else getting going for the Raiders. So I think Eagles should be able to cover.
Yeah, I think the Eagles D line is just gonna feast on this Raiders O line right now. The Raiders are just shocked, I think, at this point. Then we got the Jets and the Jaguars. This actually is a pretty interesting game to me. I've been kind of all over the Jets plus the points. Just they haven't been getting a whole lot of love lately. Didn't end up making it last week happen, but I'm gonna ride with it again this week and take the Jets. They're 13.5 or 14-point dogs against the Jags on the road. So I'm gonna buy it up to 17.5 and just say, let's go Jets. If their defense can manage to get a turnover or get a big special teams play somewhere in this game, I'd imagine they'll be able to cover the 17.5. I think the Jaguars are a pretty sleeper team so far. I just think they're going to end up struggling in the playoffs somewhere. They're likely going to have to go against a pretty solid team, and maybe the Texans or the Bills. So could end up being a pretty rough road for the Jaguars in the playoffs, but so far they look pretty damn good. So hopefully they can kind of keep that going. But yeah, I just think 14 is a lot in the NFL. Why not just buy it up to 17.5? That's even more. And if the Jets can get some sort of big defensive play or special teams play, that should be able to keep them in this game.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I'll probably take that +17 with you as well. Jags have been solid. I really like Liam Cohen. I talked about it preseason. I thought that they were going to have a good chance at winning this division. Even though I expected a better bounce back from T-Law, to be honest. I don't think he's played great this year, and yet they're 9-4. So I think that is a big shout out to Liam Cohen and what he's able to do on the offensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, they already have a good defense. So that front has been nasty all year. I think it might cause some fits for Tyrod, but he's also a vet, so he's seen probably worse than what the NFL's got these days. So I think that they should be able to cover, like you said, in the NFL. That's a lot of points. So hopefully the Jets can find a way to cover. I really don't think the Jags are that good, but they are well coached.
Yeah, for sure. Then the Cardinals and the Texans. I don't have too much to say about this one. I don't know where the line is at exactly, but I'm just going to take the Texans at -5.5. I think they're going to win this game by a touchdown pretty handily. They're at home. Their defense is absolutely humming. Giving up only 10 to Mahomes, I'd imagine they're going to be able to do far better things against the Cardinals. So I'm expecting this game to probably be like 24-3 or 24-7, something along those lines. So I think the Texans will probably win big. It's maybe one that I live bet and see if the Cardinals go up early. I can still get the Texans at like -10 late in the game and just end up getting maybe like a +500 or something. See what happens. But yeah, I like the Texans a lot in this game. I think their defense is by far the best in the NFL. I mean, I know the Broncos have been right there with them on the defensive side of the ball, but I just think the way they've stepped up over the last few weeks, once they got CJ back, they've just looked incredible. Just some massive hits against the Chiefs last week, which was pretty satisfying to watch. So yeah, I have complete faith that the Texans are going to be able to get a couple turnovers in this game, and they should be able to win this pretty handily.
Yeah, I saw a quote about Rashee Rice finally got drilled in the same way that he had drilled someone else with the car. So that was kind of funny to watch. He got rocked. Um, yeah, this will be interesting. For whatever reason, my gut's telling me take the Cardinals plus 10, but they're horrendous. So I don't know if that's going to be a pick six or a punt return touchdown or a Jacoby Brissett legacy game or something. I don't really know. So I'm just going to lay off of it. Texans have been really weird this year. They started so poor, 1-3. Only four teams ever made it after being 1-3. Everyone thought it was going to be the Chiefs that was going to be the ones to make it, and now it's looking like it's going to be the Texans who are currently in that 7 spot. So they got to keep it going. The Colts are right on their tail, and they're only one from the Jags, so they should still come away with a win. But I don't necessarily love the 10, so I'm gonna stay away.
Yeah, right on. Then we got probably my favorite game of the week. Denver Broncos at home against the Green Bay Packers. Broncos are not getting much love. They're 2.5 point, 3.5 point dogs against the Packers. Obviously, the Packers looked great last week, getting that win against the Bears. I just don't expect it to continue. This Denver Broncos team is undefeated at home this year. They need this win because if the Patriots manage to lose, they also own the tiebreaker with the Pats. So this will put them in a really good spot to secure the first round bye in the playoffs and take the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I think that the Broncos really do need this win. It's actually another big game for them against a really good battle-tested team. I think the Packers, with them being so young, are going to be prone to making a few mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, and I expect the Broncos to really capitalize on that and give Bo good field position. I think this is going to be a very field position heavy game. Which team is able to get the ball in a good spot for their quarterback is going to be really important in this one. Packers defense, I think, has been slept on a little bit as well. Their front four is right up there in the top 3 in the league, top 4 in the league. With the addition of Micah Parsons, he's also just been incredible again to watch this season. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game. I think it's going to be a defensive focused game. I think that's going to be kind of which offensive coordinator or which play caller is going to be able to step up and call the plays at the right times. Obviously, the Broncos are missing J.K. Dobbins, so I think that is going to hurt them a little bit. I'd imagine that's kind of where this line is starting to come in, is they think the defenses are pretty equal, and then the Broncos are missing their starting running backs. So they expect the Packers to be able to give Bo a little bit of hell. They may be due for a loss, but the Broncos play great at home, and they're on a 10-game win streak. So I'm just going to stick with the Broncos plus 3.5. I expect this to be a close game, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's hard to hate the Broncos plus 3 at home. They are 6-0 at home this year, and this will basically. Well, it wouldn't basically secure them. They still got to play Chargers or something one more time. But it would put them in good position to secure the division and probably end up with the 1 seed. So I think it's a big game for them. I think Sean Payton knows that. He'll have them ready to play. I'm going to take the Packers money line. They're getting Jaden Reed back this week. Christian Watson's been balling with the injury to Tucker Kraft. And Josh Jacobs was finally getting going a little bit last week. He's been slow all year, but I do like that no matter what, LaFleur is consistent with continuing to pound the rock, even if it is 3 yards a carry. He finds ways to just keep running it for 3 yards. So it's going to be a great defensive battle. 2 of the best defenses in the league right now. It's hard to hate the Broncos plus 3, but they've also won 8 of the last 9 games by 1 score. So I'm hoping somehow the Packers can find a way to get it done. If not, I'll be happy for the Broncos to get closer to securing a 1 seed. So
Yeah, for sure. Then another great game for this week. Got the Lions and the Rams. Lions are right there on the cusp of the NFC playoffs, especially with this division just being as stacked as it is. But they haven't been all that great this year. They have their games where they manage to just stomp, the not as good teams. But the Rams are a team that I think is probably one of the top 3 in the NFL. Offensive, defensively, they're just incredible to watch. Obviously, the last couple weeks they've kind of been off a little bit. That Panthers game just, I think, was a bit of a one-off. I expect Stafford to get back to doing what he does best, and that's just slinging the rock and making unbelievable passes. No better way to do it than against this Lions team. I think the Lions defense has slowly been getting better over the year, but then I think the offense has regressed a little bit. So I'm curious to see if the Rams are able to stop the run and just kind of take Jahmyr Gibbs out of the game. Because I think if they can take Gibbs out of the game, their secondary is good enough to not allow the deep ball to Jameson Williams or Amon-Ra to get going too much. So I'm going to stick with the Rams minus 2.5 in this game. don't really love it just because the Lions really need this win and really do so the Rams with the NFC West being as tight as it is. So yeah, this is gonna be a really fun one to watch. I'm really looking forward to this game, but I'll stick with the Rams -2.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams at -2.5 as well. I think that they should come away even covering the 5 points. They have looked like easily, I think, a top three team in the NFL this year. The Seahawks are right up there with them, of course, and the Broncos have been pretty solid. Um, yeah, the Lions are the 8 seed, so they need this game. So I don't expect it to be an easy one by any means, especially being a Goff Stafford trade all over again. We've seen this in the playoffs a couple times. We've seen it, I think, 3 or 4 times since it happened, and they've always been bangers of games. So this will be my favorite game of the week to watch. I might wait to live bet it, but I do think that the Rams are going to cover 5, and I am also going to buy it down to 2.5.
Yeah, right on. Then we got the Panthers and the Saints. Another toilet bowl game, in my opinion. Saints did manage to get a win last week against the Bucs, which was pretty impressive. But I think the Bucs had a few really bad coaching decisions in that game. They didn't quite have all their guys back. So I expect the Panthers to be able to get it done against the Saints. I just don't think the Saints are a very good team. Obviously got lost Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks in that trade. So I just think the Saints are just lacking a bit of everything right now. They kind of just need to rebuild from the bottom up and just see what they can come up with next year. But the Panthers need to keep themselves alive in that division and potentially take the lead if the Bucs manage to lose, or at least keep tied. So yeah, I think this is a big game for the Panthers. They really need this divisional win here, and they're only 2.5-point favorites on the road. So I'll stick with that 2.5. I like the Panthers a lot. I think that Bryce Young is pretty inconsistent, but he's kind of due for another on game. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, this is hard because the Panthers, you never know what you're going to get. At home, they've been a lot better. They've been a lot better at running the rock this year. Rico's been great. Chuba's had his moments as well. But you never know when Bryce Young's going to throw 2 pick-sixes back to back, and it feels like one of those games. But also, I hate the Saints, and I said they'd stay under 5.5 wins at the beginning of the year. And if they win this, they have a chance to go over. So I'm going to take the Panthers money line on the road. Don't love it, but it does keep them at 8-6 with the Bucs, who I think are going to get a win on Thursday night. So it'll be interesting. Saints have been pretty bad throughout the year. They have no run game. So if they're going to stay in it, it's got to be through special teams or defensive field possession.
Yeah, for sure. They've got the Titans and the Niners. I believe it's a 13.5-point line right now. Niners at home. Titans looked all right last week, had a couple big special teams plays. I don't expect that to happen against this Niners team that's pretty solid in that aspect. The Niners have been just getting offensive players back week over week, starting to kind of rebuild and get ready for the playoffs. I think they're going to be a pretty dangerous team in the playoffs if they can manage to keep themselves in that race. It's going to start with a big win here against the worst team in the NFL. So I'll take the Niners at -9.5. Titans did look a little bit better on the offensive side of the ball last week. Pollard absolutely went crazy. I think he had like nearly 200 total yards, if not more. So I think that they're just going to have to find ways to get Pollard involved, and the Niners have managed to shut it down. So yeah, I'll stick with the Niners -9.5.
Yeah, the Titans offense has been piss poor all year. I think Salah's one of the best defensive minds in the league, so I think he's going to cook something up, especially having 2 weeks to prepare for this game. I think this game's going to be a blowout. I think the Niners could win by 30, so I like taking it even at 11 or 12, wherever that line was sitting at.
Yeah, right on. Then we got the Colts and the Seahawks. Probably one of the most interesting games of the week. Right now, the Seahawks are 14-point favorites at home against this Colts team without Daniel Jones now for the rest of the season. That's a big rip because the Colts were easily one of the best teams in the NFL, or most shocking teams in the NFL, I should say, this year before that injury. Now they're banking on 44-year-old Phillip Rivers to come in and deliver a performance for them. I just don't see it happening, but they do have a really good running game and a really good offensive line. The Seahawks have a really good D-line, so it's going to be a battle of the trenches again in this game. I see the Colts defense managing to get a couple takeaways against Darnold, so we'll see what happens, but I think 14 points is a lot in the NFL, especially with a team as good as the Colts. It's going to be a matter of how much they're truly missing Daniel Jones. He wasn't looking all that great with his ankle issue anyways, so we'll see how what kind of difference Phillip Rivers can make. I saw a video of him throwing the football earlier today at practice. and he looked like a damn fossil out there. So I don't have much faith, but I think the Colts plus 17.5 will be a decent play as long as they can get their run game going somewhat.
Yeah, that's probably the scariest play of the week. I'm going to take it with you. I think that they got weapons galore. We've talked about it all year. Four guys that can go for 800 yards receiving, just receiving wise. Then you got Tyler Warren, who's been arguably the best tight end in football behind Trey McBride this season. So they're great. And then you have Jonathan Taylor up front. We'll see how it goes with a really good defense. The Seahawks have been consistently probably the top three in defense all year long. They've been fun to watch. They swarm to the ball. They're fast. And they have the best front four pressure percentage on non-blitzes. So I pray for Phillip Rivers' safety.
Yeah.
I am surprised that they went with Phillip Rivers over the likes of a Derek Carr, who's said that he is staying in shape and ready to play. But I know Phillip was there 5 years ago or whatever it was before retiring. Maybe 6. So maybe it was just because he sort of knows the offense. So I'll take plus 17.5 on the sole fact that Jonathan Taylor needs the ball to keep himself in that offensive player to you conversation with Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's going to be a battle of those two. I do think JSN gets in the end zone though, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be an awesome game to watch. Hopefully they don't bury the fossil. We'll see what happens. Vikings and Cowboys. Another super interesting game. Obviously, the Vikings had that 31-0 win over the Commanders last week. That's probably going to give them a little bit of momentum here to close out the season. Cowboys obviously had a bit of a rough loss against the Lions that they really needed to win. If there's one thing I can take away from this Cowboys team, it's that Brandon Aubrey needs to be paid like a top wide receiver in the game. Like that dude should be making probably 20 to 25 million a year with the way he kicks that football. He's absolutely automatic from anywhere inside 70 yards. So big shout out to Brandon Aubrey. He is easily the best kicker in the NFL, and I don't think it may be even he's the best kicker of all time just with the way he's playing.
On track for it.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the Vikings are going to really struggle in this game. I see the Cowboys managing to stop the run game in this one, and as long as one of the DBs can manage to play all right against Jettas, then I think they'll be able to shut down J.J. McCarthy and manage to get some pressure on him. I expect Quinnen Williams to have a big step-up game in this one to just kind of show why he belongs there, and hopefully he'll be returning as a Cowboy next season. But yeah, I'll stick with the Cowboys minus 3.5 here at home. We know they played a lot better at home after that rough one against the Lions, where they did manage to come back later in the game and just couldn't quite get it done. The defense needs to kind of readjust and get back to playing the way they were after the trade deadline. I think hopefully last week was just a one-off because they have been really bad on defense this season. But since the trade deadline, it's been a lot better. So hopefully they can turn that around this week against the Vikings with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, that was also the Cowboys' third game in 10 days going to Detroit. And now they've had 10 days of rest to be back at home where they are still averaging about 38 points a game this season. I don't expect that to be the case against a Flores defense. Granted, the last time they matched up 3 years ago, they did drop a 40-piece on them. So we'll see how it goes. The Cowboys need to go out there and ball. Pickens was getting flack for a lack of effort against the Lions, so I expect him to have a big game. I do think that they're going to establish the run game early and come away with a win. But 4 of the last 5 games against the Vikings have been decided by less than 4 points. And so the line's right at 5.5, so I'm going to buy it to Vikings plus 7. I expect Jettas to find his way in the end zone. Tight ends usually feast against the Cowboys as well, so Hawkinson's been quiet all year. I could see him get involved a little bit, but I do think that the Cowboys will pull off a win.
Yeah, right on. Then we got the final game on the slate. Monday Night Football, we got the Dolphins and the Steelers. You and I were kind of going through the Steelers' remaining schedule to close out the year, and it looked like most likely they would end up going 2-2. But if that were to happen, they would need this win against a hot Dolphins team that has won, I think, 5 of the last 6. So it is a pretty important win for the Steelers. They need to keep themselves ahead in that division conversation before they play the Ravens again. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers looked great last week. They managed to beat that really good Ravens team. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again, but they do play them at home next time. So it is going to be a pretty interesting close out to the season for that AFC side of the bracket. I think it's the AFC North. So I'm very curious to see kind of what happens with this Steelers, Ravens, Bengals division. I think that that's going to end up being one of the more interesting things that closes out the year here. To see kind of how the playoffs shape up. I do like the Dolphins the way they've been playing the last 5 or 6 weeks, but I just don't trust that Tua is going to be able to get it done against the Steelers defense. And with an Aaron Rodgers that's playing as well as he is, I just expect them to cover 2.5 here at home.
Yeah, the Dolphins went from arguably the worst team in football to having a chance at the playoffs still in Week 14. So it's really interesting to see how the turnaround has gone. Granted, they haven't really beaten too many impressive teams out of those 5 wins. You have the 3-win Commanders, the 3-win Saints, and I believe the 2-win Jets as part of that.
They
So
did beat the Bills.
they did beat the Bills. Outside of that, not too much.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. The Steelers are bound to go 9-8. It's a Tomlin thing. It's going to keep happening, and that means that they're going to go 2-2. I think that they probably end up losing the next one to the Ravens after a questionable call of the likely touchdown in the end zone being overturned, which ended up giving the Steelers the win. I was not mad about it, but that's okay. But yeah, I think Steelers are going to find a way to get a win. I don't think I'm going to take the 3. I think I'm just going to take it on the money line, but I do think they cover the 3. 2 is going to throw a pick, maybe 3. He doesn't like playing in the cold, and Pittsburgh's going to be cold. So that game should be a Steelers dub, getting them up to 8-6.
Yep, and Aaron Rodgers thrives in the cold after playing Green Bay forever. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the NFL Week 15. Really excited to see how the last 3 weeks go after today. But yeah, I mean, the playoff picture is still pretty much wide open. A couple teams lose a couple games in a row, and they drop from the 2-3 seed down to the 7 seed. Maybe not even in the playoffs. I think the Lions are 8-5 right now, and they're the 8 seed in the NFC. So it's really shaping up pretty cool to watch. Yeah, the NFL is so competitive this year, so I'm very curious to see kind of which 14 teams are going to end up finding their way in, and especially the 1 seeds. I think that having that first round bye is going to be pretty important this year to get your guys some rest, get some guys healthy, and then we'll see what happens in the quarterfinals or semifinals. Yeah, that's going to do it for Week 15 of the NFL and the 4 initial CFP games of the postseason in college football. Army-Navy don't really have a lean. Go Navy, beat Army. It's been a super fun game the last 10 years. I believe Army's 6-4 in the last 10. So it's a game that Navy needs. They're 9-2. They've been a pretty decent team the last couple of years. Just can't manage to beat Army. I think Navy might have won that game last year. But the few before it, it's been pretty difficult. So hopefully Navy will manage to get that win. But yeah, we'll see you guys back next week for Week 16 of the NFL. And maybe we'll get into some bowl games, but we'll figure that out soon. All right. Peace.